Hello, my name is Paul Marchbanks, and this is Digging in the Dirt with the sixth entry in a series on the films of Danish independent filmmaker Lars von Trier. Today we're going to be considering Breaking the Waves from 1996, largely through the lens of his personal life. Lars von Trier configures the way of righteousness as a winding, rocky path. The journey proves incredibly distressing in Breaking the Waves, for the audience as well as the characters, because von Trier forces us to witness the depths of human degradation as well as the climactic highs of relational intimacy. Some viewers would rather avoid wading through the sticky morass of sex and violence von Trier apparently deems necessary. Their sensitive temperaments conquering their patience, the patience required to hang on until the film's uplifting resolution. For many, redemptively grotesque narratives are hard enough to read, let alone watch. Von Trier appears to agree with American novelist Flannery O'Connor, however, who maintains that we blunder when we create narratives that separate nature and grace as much as possible. O'Connor argues that the resulting sweetly saccharine stories reduce our, quote, conception of the supernatural to pious cliché, constricting our understanding of reality and encouraging us to reductively categorize fiction as either obligingly sentimental or dangerously obscene. For O'Connor, an effective story rests between these two extremes, in a tale that employs, quote, as many aspects of life as are necessary to make one's total picture convincing. If you're writing about the vulgar, you have to prove they're vulgar by showing them at it, end quote. The storyteller, that is, must supply enough intimate detail to anchor the story without sinking it in smut, and ample emotional lift to raise it without its disappearing behind rose-colored clouds. A judicious measure of both these ingredients is, O'Connor holds, the only way to provide a concrete expression of mystery that is lived. In creating his own portrait of a faith and romance tested by suffering, von Trier manages to sidestep the pitfalls which O'Connor recommends against. He does this not by avoiding pathos and nudity, but by heating both elements to such temperatures that the two join to form a new alloy. This bold fusion is the culmination of a few personal changes and a series of stylistic innovations. The 7 years in which von Trier completed his first trilogy, the so-called Europa trilogy, a period characterized by near total control of the filmmaking process and similar regulation of his various phobias, ended abruptly in 1989. His mother's deathbed revelation that von Trier's biological father was not the man who had raised him, but a creative fellow she had bedded in hopes of birthing an artistic son, catalyzed both personal and professional transformation. The disclosure traumatized von Trier amidst his work on Europa, stripping him of the cultural Jewishness with which the father he knew had raised him, and forcing him to reassess his mother's character while still grieving her loss because she died soon thereafter. The same year, he converted to the Catholicism of his wife, and 5 years later followed the baptism of a daughter with his own baptism. A sea change in some cinematic style paralleled this period of spiritual exploration, a conscious relinquishing of certain aspects of filmmaking, which liberated him to explore a more dynamic method. He initiated this new creative approach during season 1 of The Kingdom by using a handheld camera, interacting with the actors while filming them, and editing together tonally incongruous takes of the same scene. The actor Katrin Cartledge, who played Dodo in Breaking the Waves, explains von Trier's evolving style as surprisingly freeing. Quote, he's in a process of change. He's in a flux, if you like, which is a very exciting time to be with somebody. He said something really beautiful. He said that he wanted the machinery of the film to be as light as a feather. He also said things like, you know, I want you to make mistakes. It's good if you make mistakes. I mean, This is like opening a door for an actor. It's like letting them out of a prison, really, end quote. In the mid-1990s, von Trier develops a creative creed that promises a new freedom born of submission. He compares the, quote, impossible, paradoxical limitations he imposes on himself to religious dogmas, which, while impossible to abide by, provide some guidelines helpful in the pursuit of truth. The truth he has in mind is fidelity to emotional and spiritual experience. A high degree of realism to be achieved by capturing authentic sound and images, quote, by all the means available and at the cost of any good taste and any aesthetic considerations. The cinematic movement he and Thomas Vinterberg kicked off in 1995 reacted against that revolution in special effects, which enabled directors to generate convincing illusions. A technological surge the two filmmakers feared, quote, would wash the last grains of truth away in the deadly embrace of sensation. Remember, this is the period when Jurassic Park had just come out a couple years earlier. As they explain in their Dogma 95 manifesto, they imposed a new discipline on themselves, putting their films into uniform by adopting 10 constrictive rules. These included the mandates that shooting always involve handheld cameras and occur on location with existing furnishings, no props or set designs to be added, and that all sound be recorded alongside video, no post-production dubbing, and no musical scores. Now, von Trier's adherence to these and other constraints proved imperfect even in the movement's heyday, but they did feed his, quote, desire to submit to the authority and the rules he was never given in his youth. The Dogma Pledge helped von Trier surrender a measure of control over his work, control he had cultivated for both personal and professional reasons. This release led to a burst of creative and thematic license in the early 1990s, but also a surge of anxiety. An interview conducted with Christian Thompson, published the year von Trier released Breaking the Waves, acutely registers this tension between hope and fear. When asked what has triggered recent exploration of direct emotional conflict, von Trier cites religion and his baptism a couple years earlier, then points to his recent divorce as proof he's not a good Catholic. At this critical juncture, he sounds unmoored, floating out to open sea. He has abandoned the rituals on which he long relied, quote, to prevent everything from reverting back to chaos, but has not taken firm hold of his chosen faith. He realizes that if one approaches religion merely seeking a new set of rituals, quote, then it's something other than a religion to you. His desire is palpable. Quote, I regard religion as I do miracles, and that I don't believe in them, but I hope for them to occur. Right now, I guess I'm standing at a crossroads where the child who creates rituals in order to control the world meets the adult who creates a faith in order to wholeheartedly embrace a religion. I'm in great need of a faith. Though committed to storytelling inclusive of the miraculous, von Trier finds it difficult to apply this more expansive artistic vision to his own life. His freer, looser way of making movies brings him pleasure, unlike earlier, more disciplined films, which were, quote, hard and unpleasant to make. But this directorial freedom costs him peace of mind. In 1996, he reveals, quote, that the phobias that have always been there, and which I've until now been able to keep in check, they're blooming like mad these days. 2 years later, he reports that while he considers the film The Idiots to be a little monument, it lacked the therapeutic effect of previous work. At the turn of the century, he still considers himself a Catholic, but has reconciled himself to viewing the religion as yet another system needed, so as, quote, not to have chaos falling down on us. By 2011, he's telling interviewers that he's now an atheist, though that year's film, Melancholia, labels all humankind evil, and he structures his next, Nymphomaniac, as one long penitential confession. The House That Jack Built, from 2018, a disturbing and grisly tale, which concludes by sending a serial killer to eternal punishment, juxtaposes the possibility of heaven against the likelihood of hell. Despite his manifest willingness to depict damnation, a state of being skirted by most modern filmmakers, von Trier still sounds uncomfortable with the implications of his own work, noting in one of the few interviews granted late in his career that, quote, "Paradise is a hard one to swallow." What do you see in Breaking the Waves? Is this tale about Bess McNeill, a young woman raised among staunch Calvinists on the north coast of Scotland, ultimately a tale about faith, doubt, or something in between?